Shalom. Oh, man. It's early in the day, very early. Shalom. So let me see. I might have to just shut off
It's early in the day. Very.
volume over there and see how that go. If I shut off the volume over there. But I want to deal with a topic. Let me see. Let me start recording first. Record on this computer. I want to deal with a topic called We Don't Listen. So I don't know. My dreams would be showing me so much. So it was more so showing me uh of an event that occurred with me. I'm not gonna give all the details of the event, so but I can, instead of saying is we don't listen, is I don't listen. A lot of times when we call ourselves being an audience of someone, we have already set ourselves in, or I have already set myself in problem solving, or I'm going to hear it the way I want to hear it. And so I go about the matter a lot of times with my own desired outcome, more so the focus than the outcome that the person that I'm supposed to be listening to is desiring. And I feel like this is not something just common to me, but it could be just me. Could be. So let me get at this. Abiyah, thank you for this opportunity just to talk, just to open my mouth. And maybe somebody will hear what I'm saying. Maybe someone will listen and actually apply what they're hearing to future situations. Yada Yahuwah. So, man, okay. Say for instance, you're sitting up there, you're cooking something, and in the process, you need something to contain the liquid of whatever you have. And so you say, hey, to someone else, hand me that bowl. And you point out directly that bowl, but they've looked at the situation and they've already decided what you needed. And instead of giving you that bowl that requested, they give you another container, maybe a bag or something else, to contain the liquid, but you want specifically that bowl. That's what you asked for. But they've decided, no, you need this bag. And so in your asking, you see them reaching for something different than what you asked, clearly pointed out, and it frustrates you to the point that you just basically said, forget it. You abandon what you were doing and you go get the bowl yourself. And sometimes now they're in the way because they call themselves want to get in the process and call themselves helping you, but they're not helping you. They're in the way because you know what you wanted and you know what you desired. But their thoughts is, if I would have been doing it, this is the way I would have done it. But it's not their situation. You can have that happen in a ministry. You can have that happen at work. You're asking someone to help you do what you're doing, finish the process that you're following. But of course, they see it and view it their own way and want to do it their own way. Is it ends up giving the operation or the thing that you're doing a different perspective and view now. Those that are seeing it may see it differently than what you intended for it to be seen. So let me go and let me share a situation in the Bible that fits the narrative that I'm trying to speak on. So let me go there. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. Let me broaden my screen. I'm going over here to Bimidbar, Numbers 20. And I'm going to read a little bit. It says, and the children of Israel, all the congregation. So this is all 12 tribes, 13 tribes if you consider that Manasseh and Ephraim are two different tribes, and then, Levi. So came into the wilderness of Zin in the first new month. And the people stayed in Kadesh, and Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled against Moshe and against Aharon. They were thirsty. And the people contended with Moshe and spoke, saying, if only we had died when our brothers died before Yahuwah. Now, many who read this can probably think back and notice that there was a time before that Moses was told to give the people some water, and he was told to strike a rock, and as he did so, water came out of that rock, and the people were able to drink. So that before situation required that he strike the rock. That's what worked before. That's what Moses had, partaked in doing for the people, and he knew it worked before. It says, why have you brought up the assembly of Yahuwah into this wilderness that we and our livestock should die here? And why have you brought us up out of Mizraim to bring us to this evil place, not a place of grain or figs or vines of pomegranates? And there is no water to drink. These people are murmuring, complaining, and they are taking issue with where they are, and they're not content. Then Moshe and Aharon went from the presence of the assembly to the door of the tent of appointment, and they fell on their faces, and the esteem of Yahuwah appeared to them. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, take the rod and assemble the congregation, you and your brother Aharon, and you shall speak to the rock. This is different than the command he gave him before of striking the rock. He told him to speak to the rock before their eyes, and it shall give its water. So Yahuwah gave a clear and direct instruction to speak to the rock. Unlike his first directive the last time that they needed water to strike the rock, he told them to speak to the rock. So, the action would be clear that it's coming from Yahuwah and it's different than what was done before. But what did Moshe hear? Or what did he think to do? And you shall bring water for them out of the rock and give drink to the congregation and their livestock. And Moshe took the rock from before Yahuwah as he commanded him. So he took this rod like he was told. And Moshe and Aharon assembled the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, hear now, you rebels. So right now he's chastening them. He's letting his frustration come out. Shall we bring water for you out of this rock? He's representing Yah right now, but he sounds angry. His own motivation is to basically chasten them and correct them from all the murmuring. Then Moshe lifted his hand. Remember, he's supposed to just speak to the rock and struck the rock. Pop! It says twice with the rock. So pop, pop. Hit it twice. And much water came out. And the congregation and their livestock drank. So he not only scolded them, but then he struck the rock. Yah just told him just to speak to the rock. He didn't tell him to scold him. So he basically had his own thoughts on what should be done. He didn't do what Yah told him. He didn't listen. And I'm guilty myself as many times. I've been told to do certain things, and I've decided how it should be done. When it may have been very, very clear instructions on what should be done. Just like I said earlier, hand me that bowl. Speak to that rock. But instead, the person that was given the direction decided what would be the best solution and not doing what was told and directed for them to do. But Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aaron, because you did not believe me, you didn't trust my directions to set me apart in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore, you do not bring this assembly into the land which I have given them. The results that I intended for the whole situation, nah, that's not going to occur. We get so frustrated and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know. If I'm asking somebody to give me a bowl and they're going to give me something else, you know, I shouldn't have a temper tantrum and say, forget it. I ain't cooking none of this. But it's possible that I would. I know myself. I'm like, man, watching a comedy show one time, or a comedy, I guess you can say it was more of a talk. And the person was speaking on how, you tell your woman to duck, and she started asking questions instead of just doing what you say. And, you both get shot. But so often nowadays, we just don't listen. We listen more so to reply and respond, more so to actually comprehend what's being said. I find this to be common in the workplace. I've been lead person at work many times in the past, but I really don't enjoy it nowadays, because everybody wants to sit in the lead position. And of course, they have a thought on how they'll do it. And, a lot of times from the lead position, you have to direct people to do stuff that you've regularly done, but now they take offense to it. When you talk to them about doing tasks, they're sitting in their mind saying, well, let me sit in that seat. And when I get the chance to sit in that seat, I'm going to make you do this. I'm going to make you do that. They have a improper focus. A lot of time the task is not even difficult, but it's the whole idea. They don't want you leading over them. They don't want to have to submit their will to you. They probably have no problem submitting to someone else, but specifically don't want to submit to you. They view themselves leading over you. They're fine with them leading over you, but never, the reverse. And it's like, okay, a lot of times you're in that position, not by your own choosing, but you've been given direction to be there. They don't want to hear that. Hey, could you go fuel this vehicle? You fuel it. I've run into that recently. I asked somebody, about doing something that's a minor task of the job, and rather than, them just heeding it, you do it. And I'm like, no, it's your task to do. I'm in this position right here, and you're in that position. A threat came out of it. They got so mad at me for, asking them to do something that was a part of their job, that they threatened me. And of course, I'm like, whatever, but it's so serious nowadays when you're giving direction to people, you know, the smallest of things can set somebody off. Moses was set off, because he was getting frustrated and tired of the people because they were complaining all along. But that day he had just had it. And he had been obedient to Yah all the way up until that point, even to the point that Yah had said, I would replace these people and bring another nation out of you. Not that he wanted to do that, but he was testing Moses to see his heart. And in the end, Moses' heart came out. You know, he wanted his way to be done in that situation, that those people would get scolded and know that they were wrong. And he showed them by striking the rock because he probably wanted to hit them. He probably wanted to hit them. A lot of times in conversations, again, I gotta say I'm guilty of listening to respond. And I got to work on that. I have to work on it. Sometimes I'm in debates or discussions with people, even coworkers, and I can see they're not listening to me. Some of the stuff they say, in a discussion recently I was having with someone, they tried to say that Ishmael should be in the story of Israel. And I'm like, we talking about Israel. Why Ishmael even brought up? They're Ishmael was Abraham's son. I'm like, but we're not talking about the sons of Abraham. If that's the case, then what about Midian? That's also Abraham's son. We're focusing on specifically Israel. That's the line from the grandson of Abraham of, Yaakov. These are the people of promise that we're dealing with. Oh, there's a promise that was made to Ishmael too. And I'm like, but that is not what Israel's focus is. The promises to Ishmael is the promises to Ishmael and his descendants. That doesn't benefit or take away anything from Israel. And the blessings and the favor towards Israel don't benefit or take away anything from Ishmael. I'm like, if you're gonna go there, you can also say what the blessing towards Esau. And I'm like, why we having a 10-minute conversation and you're trying to take it on a rabbit trail that's gonna make this discussion a whole hour. I'm like, are you even listening? I asked the base question. I'm like, okay, we're talking, you don't know nothing. Israel's in the Midwest, Middle East. And I'm like, okay, so what continent is Israel a part of? What continent? And that's a simple answer to, some simple thing I think to answer. But, it's in the Middle East. I'm like, so where's the Middle West? I'm like, what is the Middle East? What continent is that? So I started explaining about tectonic plates and how, you know, Israel is on the African tectonic plate. Tried to show him information and all that. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, are you even listening? You just, arguing and, and you're not listening. Oh, no, Israel has never been righteous. And I'm like, okay, never? I'm like, so what about the time after Moses with Yahushua? When you read the story of Yahushua at the end of Yahushua's lifetime, that man came before the people and said, as far as me and my family, we gonna serve Yahuwah. Y'all ain't gonna be able to do it, but we gonna serve Yahuwah. And the people said, oh, you got us wrong. You got us messed up. We gonna serve Yahuwah too. And basically from that point, not just Joshua and his family, but all of Israel walked in righteousness. And then even after Yahushua, who they called Joshua, died, all of them still walked according to the will of Yahuwah. Up to that generation died away. So there is a time in history when people of Israel as a whole walked according to the will of Yahuwah. Can't say never. And we know, or most people should know, that Yahushua is the son of Nun. So he's born of a man, and he was able to lead the people in righteousness. So it does not, require that Yah come down himself and do this. Yah himself has over and over in the beginning with Adam. Adam was the representative of mankind. Adam is mankind, a son of Adam. Yahushua would be a son of Adam. Yahusha is called a son of Adam. His mankind aspect is what allows him to represent us. That bothers people when I say that. If he was perfect, then how could he be tempted? If he was all knowing, how could it say he learned from his sufferings? He himself said many times, the Father knows. When the two brothers asked, will we be able to sit next to you in the kingdom? He says, not for me to give that information, or not for me to know that. That's from the Father. Yahusha is the greatest man there ever was. He is the image of the Most High, such as was Adam. But Adam failed. Yahusha did not. Yahusha walked out and did the words that his father told him. What he heard, he didn't deviate from. He sat there in the garden and sweated blood or whatever, because he knew that cup was his to drink from, and he accepted and did what he said he would do, and that is obey the Father. Moshe, no. He listened and did what he believed would be best. Many of us are listening and doing what we believe to do best. That's not gonna cut it. And I'm one to say for myself, I've walked in that same stitch. I'm walking in that, where I'm listening and doing what I believe is best for myself. And I got to get better. I got to start obeying. And a lot of times I'm not hearing because I'm disconnected. Living in this lifetime that we're in, a lot of times we, see what's going on. These wars and rumors of wars can just, distract us. We being like Kepha, we are set in purpose to walk on water. But we start looking at left and right at the storm, and we begin to sink. These wars and rumors of war, that's storms. A lot of this stuff on social media, those are storms. We need to keep focused on the directions to get to the destination. But no, we looking at the distractions, because life gonna happen. Life gonna keep lifing. A lot of times our jobs, our journeys, obviously bound. We connected to systems of unrighteousness, because I see a lot of unrighteousness at my workplace. A lot of things that I can't speak about, because I'm employed there. I can lose employment for speaking on. A lot of times I'm not able to walk as the man of Yah, the anointed man that I'm supposed to be, because I can't speak on certain things because that's not the language that they want to hear in those places. My directives aren't there. Aren't for that type of talk. There's a lot of mental illness, a lot of confusion, a lot of spiritual wickedness that I have to basically see. I don't partake in it, but I have to witness it. And it's draining at times. And sometimes I had to catch myself because, again, they have given me directives. And if I speak, I could be put out that place on some of the stuff. No, I'm not crossing any boundaries on who I am in Yah, but sometimes who I'm in Yah, when I'm dealing with those situations, it frustrates me. And I just want to call it for what it is. Sometimes I just need to pray, but I sure want to speak on it. All right, Abiyah, thank you for this opportunity. I'm up out of my bed early, was waking from my dream and I didn't just, I'm listening. I'm getting up and speaking because I felt directed to do so. So I thank you for spending time with me this morning, y'all. Giving me a moment of your time to press me to share something. May it be edifying to the listener. May it serve the purpose that is meant to be served. And I thank you for your strength and your favor in my life. And may I be about your will so that I can receive the promises that you have set for me and my household. Yada Yahuwah. Shawn Quill'Yah, One Vision Ministry. Yada Yahuwah.